Hi, I'm Carcino.
Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
No one knows Carcino and none of these.
There's so much going on in the world, and I'm just giving my 2 cents on it. Go in and do a raid at someone's house, but you don't have an arrest warrant for them.
Boo. Make it make sense to me, Ryan Clark.
He reached out to us about taking something out of the pivot that was about him. And in doing that, in communicating with Channing, he unsends his messages so he can only screenshot what Channing said in response to him reaching out. To me, that is not a man that is continually worth your energy, right? There was nothing said from Channing's side that's going to dispute that. There is going to be no ongoing beef because he's not worth that energy. But every time you guys come on here and speak on him again, it just gives him something else to go and talk about because he's not going to be thoughtful enough, mindful enough, right? Forward thinking enough to have something else. And even if we are like, even now, something's probably going to be said about this because they need this energy, right? They're going to need to be able to say that Ryan Clark was speaking with Kwame and speaking with Carcino, and he said this about me. Here's what I think about Ryan Clark, right? That's how it's going to work. And what I'm saying is, I don't even know Gil. I have no beef with Gil. I don't care what he says. I don't care what he does. But y'all got to get to the point where y'all don't either.
So we got to get to a point where we don't either, right? Then we come to this.
I like you, right? Because I got a little a-hole to me too. So I get it. But you won though, Gil. Like you won, bro. Like even with all that you've gone through, you won. Like even your platform now, people pay attention to you, right? You've done so well in this part of your life. You're now bringing other people in, whether it be hoopers, Josiah, whoever it is. Like they get to eat because of what you've done, and it almost feels like I think back to Javaris and you being able to say, you know what, I should have did something different here. You don't ever go, I've won, I can do something different.
How did we go to that? How did we switch? How did we switch so much to you telling me right to my face? Well, not to my face, but in a live stream, you're telling us what this dude did. You told us, oh, well, thank you, appreciate it. You told us clearly, loud and clear, and very concise. You told us this is not a man that's even worth your time. To me and Kwame, you just said that. He's not a man that's worth our time. You very adamantly said those words, Ryan Clark, to us. We just played it. You've heard it. You's like, I don't want nothing to do with Gil. I don't know Gil. I don't like, it's not like I don't got no beef with him, but I wouldn't even want that, wouldn't even trust him because of what he did to Channing. That's what you said. You said I wouldn't even give that man my time because of what he did. He went and changed messages. He sent us a message saying that he wanted something taken out of the interview Kwame Brown did with the Pivot podcast. He wanted it off the show or out of the interview. He wanted it edited out. And what you guys decided to do was something else altogether. Now, with that being said, it went straight to a whole nother level. I'm trying to figure out, what did he win? I heard you explain it. He won because he got his people jobs. Josiah already had a job with Fubu Sports. With Gil, because he's doing all the work. Gil just comes in and talks. So to say Gil is the reason that they're doing all of this, oh, it's because of Gil, it's because of Gil. No, it's because of Gil knowing these people that's doing all this work. But this was a man who you said you didn't even have any respect for. That's the part that gets me. Because this is a man you had no respect for. None. Zero. Zilch. So in the respect department, thank you. But in the respect department, he was standing on zero. So the problem that I have with trying to get things understood here is that when you start looking at the long list of problems that other people have and what they're dealing with and what they're confrontationally compared to, I look back at Ryan Clark and what he was actually saying with us on that panel and was trying to reiterate to us that Gilbert Arenas is not a man that is worth our time. So when he said these things, it's baffling to us to hear him say, Gil, you won. It's baffling for us to see him interview Gilbert Arenas when this is a man he didn't want to give his time, not having anything to do with us, period. It's the fact that you took back basically the words and advice that you gave to us. You changed and totally did an interview with a man who you told us to ignore and that you wouldn't do anything with because of what he did to Channing. But yet and still, y'all got him front line and center on your podcast show. And the fact is, he never brought up Kwame Brown on the show. That's another thing. Gilbert did not bring Kwame Brown's name up. And I don't know if y'all plotted this before y'all got on the podcast, but you brought up Kwame Brown's name. And then he came in and chimed in as if he was waiting for you to say that so he can kick that right off. That's another telltale sign that there's a problem. And that was something I didn't like. I'm not Kwame Brown, but I didn't like the way that whole thing went down or how it was edited up. I didn't like it at all. Because if you was really trying to, I want to try to end this for Kwame Brown would have been involved. There'd have been a conversation with Kwame Brown. And I'm quite sure you have not spoken to Kwame Brown when you did this interview or even probably after you've done this interview. It's just a whole 180 from what happened previously and from the advice you gave us to go ahead and interviewing this man involving Kwame Brown's name and saying you won, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, what did he win? What did he win? Do he have podcast show of the year? Does he have, what is he doing that Paul George ain't doing? Podcast P. What is he doing that all of these other podcast shows isn't doing? Where is he winning? You see what I'm saying? It's not making sense to any of us. So if it's not making sense to us, we're going to have a lot of questions at the end of it. We didn't ask you to be mad at Gilbert Arenas. None of us, me or Kwame Brown, did not ask you to have a problem with Gilbert Arenas. Nobody said, hey, we need you to be upset with Gil because we upset with Gil. So we need you to be upset with Gil too. That wasn't the case. Not at all. Not even close to being the case. Now, where we run into a disconnect and a major problem is the fact that you was out there and you was upset with Gil over the fact that he blanked out all the messages he sent to Channing and only sent you, Kwame Brown, the messages Channing was saying, but it was in response so that Kwame would have a problem with Channing, thinking Channing was talking bad about him behind his back. And Ryan Clark didn't like the way that went down. So you, knowing how this man operates, knowing how this man was doing what he was doing, why are you out here acting as if you have no idea why Kwame Brown and Gilbert Arenas has an issue, why they don't have a friendship or a teammate, brotherly type thing? Why are you acting like you have no idea of what's going on? I was very disappointed because I was like, that's not the same Ryan Clark that we was just chatting with, and he's listening to it all go down. I know it was been a year, but really?
Little old me when I said it. That's what y'all that's what they're not thinking about. Why is the victim following me after I said it? Yeah,
Good question.
You're not gonna say that. You're gonna run around, fuck with other people. You're not gonna answer these questions. How did you hurt your arm then? If it wasn't through the window, how was it? Still ain't said. You can't even give a lie up.
Right.
Has he said how he hurt his arm?
Nope, I think he dodged that.
So all these women, how he did it. Obviously, it wasn't what Self said because
come on,
he wore sleeve during the playoff.
But and she was pregnant and playing.
No, they go to this.
Here's the part where he's looking at Queen Regina's home address, and they're looking up a 63-year-old woman's address.
His address, Regina. Here you go, Regina.
Well, George, your mama's redid it and playing. So I thank God.
She's showing her house right here.
Peaceful protest.
She about to show her address, her own address. Here you go, y'all.
No Black Lives Matter.
There you go. There you go. There go her address right there.
Lord. She got
on video. Got it on video. 1039. And I could definitely find the street out because I got family in Georgia.
FBI find it fast.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And then if you Google this address, I'm pretty sure that Black Lives Matter sign will be right on the Google. You go to this bitch's house right here, bitch. I got you, Regina. I'm gonna send the drone back over there too, bitch.
Like you can see when like everyone he goes at, we come online, right, and we defend ourselves. We defend these fake allegations. When I came here, I said, I asked, what did I do? What did I do to you? What did I do to you? I never had Coach bench you. Eventually, we got the coach. He said the same thing. Right. They had for me to take off the gloves on him, and I still haven't took them all the way off. But we can answer when you say something. I can answer all questions
without hesitation. It's a lateral thumbnail.
Troll.
That's
Head. Kwame Brown. Just so you can see how much I've been on your head. The reason Skinny knew you was at the Seesaw is because I had eyes on you all day. I knew you was at the Seesaw. Skinny information just to troll you. Yes, I did.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I did, sir.
Uh-oh. Hit the link, Kwame.
I think that's enough of that video. Casino.
Yeah, then he right after that he says he did the same thing to me. right after that, he says, and Carcino, I did the same thing to you. I gave that information to him to use to you. Now, here's the thing. The person he's saying he gave that information to actually leaked out my home address, my parents' information, their phone numbers, everything. I had to report that person so that they would take that down. Now, Gilbert Arenas is just admitting to giving that information to that person. If I wanted to, Gilbert Arenas will be up facing criminal charges with that guy. I could have had them both in there. Now, if someone comes to my home and try to do something to me, I harm them, lives is lost and people hurt. For what? That's the main problem. For what? You're doing
so they can write it up like we beefing. And the fact that he comes to YouTube saying what he's saying is creating a narrative that they all like. They want to say black males are beefing. So in the case of we run into each other and something happened, then all it was just beef. When you can clearly hear what he's saying and what I'm saying.
But that's part of that toxic energy I was talking about. If you're a professional athlete, you've made hundreds of millions of dollars. You were considered the greatest thing in Washington, D.C. Well, you should be talking about youth programs that you got that's going on for the youth. If you're going to come on YouTube or something like that, you would think, okay, well, he's going to be talking about some programs he's got or something for the kids that he's doing with the youth. He should be highlighting these things. He's highlighting how many women he had, burning down a house of a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend that was dating his baby mother that he was fiance with. He's bragging about that person's house being burnt down.
But I think, Sino, but so my thought on it, and even if we were talking about this toxicity that continues to prevail is when you continue to give it energy, it's just like any other your house address. If someone could harm your people, if there is in some way that we are or you are in danger, then you gotta be a man. At least in my thought process, I'm not going to give this life. I'm not going to give him life because, in a sense, and I had an opportunity, man. First of all, Kwame, I just want to say thank you. What you did in coming on the pivot, man, and the lives that I feel like you touched, and the perceptions you changed of people who have lied on you or said certain things about you, man. I'm forever grateful for having an opportunity to be a part of that. But you are bigger than this. You do have a heart for the community. You do have a thought process that will continue to elevate. But this doesn't elevate it. Replaying what he's saying or playing into that or going back and forth with him, he doesn't have anything else to talk about. You know, so much so, and I can share this. He reached out to us about taking something out of the pivot that was about him. And in doing that, in communicating with Channing, he unsends his messages so he can only screenshot what Channing said in response to him reaching out. To me, that is not a man that is continually worth your energy, right? There was nothing said from Channing's side.
Then why did you interview him?
There is going to be no ongoing beef because he's not worth that energy. But every time you guys come on here and speak on him again, it just gives him something else to go and talk about because he's not going to be thoughtful enough, mindful enough, right? Forward thinking enough to have something else. And even if we are like, even now, something's probably going to be said about this because they need this energy, right? They're going to need to be able to say that Ryan Clark was speaking with Kwame and speaking with Carcino, and he said this about me. Here's what I think about Ryan Clark, right? That's how it's going to work. And what I'm saying is, I don't even know Gil. I have no beef with Gil. I don't care what he says. I don't care what he does. But y'all got to get to the point where y'all don't either, because
now you don't care what he says and what he does, but then you go and interview him. You don't care about this man. You don't care what he does. You don't care about any of it. But yet you sit him on your show. It was the most bafflingest thing I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe it.
What you dog? It's like you know,
you are, but you're an antagonist though. Like, and I like you, right? Because I got a little a-hole to me too. So
I like you. I like you. You like him now? What happened to I don't care about this man? I don't like this man. I don't care about this man. What happened? What happened? You got to explain this to me. What happened?
I get it, but you won though, Gil. Like you won, bro. Like even with all that you've gone through, you won. Like even your platform now, people pay attention to you, right? You've done so well in this part of your life. You're now bringing other people.
What did he win? What did he win? Can someone please explain to me what did he win? You won, Gil. I'm still baffled. What the hell did Gilbert Arenas win? Where's his plaque of the award says that he's the winner? Winner of what? You're bringing other people on so that they can get paid. No, Underdog Fantasy is bringing other people on so that they can get paid. You see, Ryan Clark got a job. He worked for ESPN. The Pivot Podcast is his project. Okay, that's his project. They got other people on there. They need this. They don't have a job. They going off their retirement and hoping that the Pivot Podcast kick in one day. And start kicking in those dividends. But it makes me look bad because I suggested that if Kwame Brown was to talk to anybody, the Pivot Podcast was a safe place to go. Because it seemed like that was a safe place to go. You know, we watched the interview together. Like I sent it to him and said, hey, check this out. And we both watched the way the interview was conducted. And I was like, I trust Ryan Clark. You know, he's always been straight up. And one person told me Ryan Clark was a snake. And I didn't think none of it. I was just like, maybe he got it wrong, because I've never seen Ryan Clark waver or move in a different light. And he said, I know personally how he moves, and I don't like it for X amount of reasons. You know, and this person did this to me exactly. And Ryan Clark saw me, ducked out, and didn't say nothing to me, completely avoided me because he did me dirty. And I was like, Ryan Clark? And I was just like, that could just be some, you know, some sideline hate. Never seen that done before. Never would assume it would come from him. Ever. Of any type of just not being straight up with somebody. Never would picture that coming from Ryan Clark in a million years. For him to sit there and do that. So my thing is, I just want him to explain it. I don't care about what Gil said. Gil's going to say whatever Gil going to say. You know, it's going to be 87% bulls and the other percent just the truth that's been told in a whole different way. He don't think he knows how to tell the truth at all, and don't care about if he gets the truth right or wrong. He's just all the way messed up. So well, for instance, it's not puzzling because it's not about money. See, it's about character of the situations. You see, you left my name out of there. I make more money, more than people have dreamed of. Too, but you see how quickly you left my name out is because they're celebrities, or they public figures. But you never would assume myself in that conversation. But it's not about money. It's about principle. And when you don't have principle, and when you carry yourself as principles, we were supposed to move like that and such. The person that I saw that he interviewed was Malik Beasley. We watched Malik Beasley, and the way he had a safe platform. Malik Beasley don't interview with nobody, and believe me, everybody has asked him. You know, they want to talk to him, and the place he felt the most safest to talk to, and after all what he went through mentally being on the show, the person he felt safest to speak with was the Pivot Podcast. And I've watched their interviews, and I watched the people that go on there, and most of the people that go on that show, they know, I'm protected here. I'm safe here. You know, I feel like this is good. So it's a whole different environment. So to see him take a whole nother angle towards what we're saying and try to get me and Kwame to realize Gilbert isn't worth our time, but just only for you to go and get this man the attention, and he was worth your time, but he wasn't worth ours. After you just gave us the advice that he wasn't worth our time. This guy's only going to do this. He's playing games. He's doing that. He's not a man of character. I wouldn't even do that to this man, with this man. I don't have no beef with him, but I don't know Gil. I don't have nothing to do with Gil. And now you on this couch talking about I like you because you're an a-hole and got a little a-hole in me too. It's like, what? It's not disrespectful. It's disrespectful, Francis. Nothing you said was disrespectful. But the problem that we have today and what we're faced with is the reality that things are not going the way they should go. And when you have those like lulls and those moments that don't go well, you start to actually see it when it materializes. And then you go, all right, we get it now. This is what it's about. I mean, I was disappointed in Ryan Clark because I thought he was getting it. Like if anything, like Ryan Clark did not have to go on Kwame Brown's podcast show on his platform. He was very appreciative of Kwame coming up. It was very successful for the Pivot podcast, as he has over 2 million views right now to date. Kwame Brown does. So his video was quite successful, even though Gil's video is going to die out. And it's only popular because of the last part of the interview, he starts mentioning Kwame Brown. That's it. So only through his attachment to Kwame Brown does this happen. But you bring up Kwame Brown's name halfway through the interview, as that's the only reason y'all wanted him on the show. And to me, it's quite disrespectful when you take those type of practices and the type of energy and you put it in a way that just don't make any sense to the rest of the world. It was like, why would you do that? That's when it becomes more than baffling. When you do something that's so off to the left, it's like, what was that even for? What was that even about? Why would you do that? Like, seriously. What would be the root cause for somebody to be so disrespectful? That's where I come from. I come from that cloth of this is it. Like, why would you take that angle? Why would you take that approach? And I really, the way I see it, like Kwame probably ain't gonna speak on it. And he just probably will keep it in, probably say one thing and just be like, I'm done with it. To see it go that way, it really got everybody stirred up because we didn't understand where it was coming from and why would he even take that angle. We never understood why people would take such an angle. That really put people in a different bind and made people look at things a little bit differently because we couldn't believe it. Somebody could be that deceptive. We never asked him to be against Gilbert Arenas. He was upset with the practices Gilbert did when he contacted them that wasn't even worth our time. So if it's not worth our time to talk about Gilbert Arenas and don't have the character, why did you feel he had a character enough for you to put him on your platform? That's the part I have a problem with.
playing into that or going back and forth with him, he doesn't have anything else to talk about. So much so, and I can share this, he reached out to us about taking something out of the pivot that was about him. And in doing that, in communicating with Channing, he unsends his messages so he can only screenshot what Channing said in response to him reaching out. To me, that is not a man that is continually worth your energy, right? There was nothing said from Channing's side that's going to dispute that. There is going to be no ongoing beef because he's not worth that energy. But every time you guys come on here and speak on him again, it just gives him something else to go and talk about because he's not going to be thoughtful enough, mindful enough, right? Forward thinking enough to have something else. And even if we are like, even now, something's probably going to be said about this because they need this energy, right? They're going to need to be able to say that Ryan Clark was speaking with Kwame and speaking with Carcino, and he said this about me. Here's what I think about Ryan Clark, right? That's how it's going to work. And what I'm saying is, I don't even know Gil. I have no beef with Gil. I don't care. That's not something y'all want to be, or I at least feel y'all want to be a part of going forward. But if we do this and continue to give it life, he's going to be right back with more. Sometimes you have to ignore ignorance. You just do.
Well, let me explain why I'm doing this, because I think that the media turns a blind eye and they protect certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to ignore what's on the internet, but it's a different story when guys are yelling out street names to my house and they're on the side of my house.
You're right.
And they're taking drone footage and they're taking pictures of me at my car. They're taking pictures of me inside restaurants. They're following me to DC. And so I want the narrative to be out there so that if I have to hurt someone, I know the event that they're trying to set up. It's no coincidence that Charlemagne the God went on the Breakfast Club within one day of this whole conversation and read out a family history like that, and then said I almost snapped over basketball without a conversation. They know I'm going to defend myself against anybody who tries to do something to me. I wouldn't give a hill of beans if Gilbert Arenas is just running his mouth on the internet. But the internet sneaky stuff and then hiding and saying, well, I'm not bothering Kwame Brown. He's jealous of me. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. The media on his side needs to know. And I think it's a bigger conspiracy than that, because had they saw Kwame Brown spit on somebody at the 49ers game, I probably would have been arrested for assault. It's a double standard in media. And they seem to only want the black men that perpetuate a cycle of violence. Steven Jackson is on a podcast, almost 50 years old. He's almost fighting at a boxing arena. He's alleging that he's attached to gang members. He's talking, all of them talk this same stupid talk. When Gilbert and Jack tried to pick on me, what did they laugh about? He had security in LA. So, like, it's this mentality that they're basketball players and street dudes at the same time. Which one are they going to be? That's not, I pride myself on not being a killer of my community. Am I above putting these up and fighting another man to get an understanding? No. Am I above any man that have an issue, we ironing it out? No. But what they bring to the table and what they say is that we can have other men do certain things. In 1 week of talking with Steven Jackson, they've been talking about me for 20 years. If you go look at the interview that he had, he said, Kwame's mad at me because Jenny Buss brought up a trade and I said he was sorry. We all have been talking about him for 20 years. Well, okay. I only been talking about them for a week at the time, and he wanted to play in traffic. So these are the things that's wrong with our community. And it needs to be highlighted. We have NBA players NFL players bring up behavior of all of these males?
Yeah, I think the first part about that is a lot of times people don't care, right? The Steven Jackson dust up at the boxing match. I can say this. If I'm somewhere with my wife and there is some sort of commotion, my wife becomes my first thought, right?
Okay.
Protecting her. And whatever that means, if that means being someone that you see as a coward and grabbing my wife and running because I don't even want her around it, I don't want her to catch a stray, I can't defend myself and her, then that's what we're going to do. If it's, and you know, Kwame and Carcino, if it's throwing hands right there because I feel like I have to, that's what I'm going to do. So in that situation, I don't necessarily, important is we have to, in our ages, right, and in a way that we're trying to affect the community, we do have to watch the things that we praise, the things that we put on the pedestal, the fact that a lot of us grew up a certain way or grew up in certain communities, and we worked extremely hard to get out of those communities. Now, do we want to go back and pour into them? Absolutely. But we knew we didn't want to live that way the rest of our lives. We knew that our parents, or we knew that our uncles or our mentors sacrificed certain things so we could be different, right? And two, if you grew up in the right neighborhood, the dope boys or the real OGs, they tried to protect you.
Yes, they did.
You feel me? Like they didn't want you in that.
Nope.
And so I don't think that at our age and where we are, that's anything we should ever praise as if that's the way out. When you look at something like what happened to Tyree Nichols. I'm intertwining football and freaking police brutality right now. Tyree Nichols was killed by 5 brothers who were on a task force that was set up to protect the hood, right? Part of the name was to bring it's Scorpion and it's peace in our neighborhoods. That's what the last 4 letters mean, right? And it's that type of, we gotta be hard, we gotta be gangster, we gotta be this, we gotta be that. That's tearing our communities down anyway.
Facts.
You know, and so for me, I'm like you, Kwame, and I'll be honest with you, bro. Like, I have no problem with these. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter where it is, I bet on me. Right?
Right.
But I'm not threatening nobody with that.
Exactly.
I'm 40,
and that's the point that I'm trying to make. That's the point that we're trying to make. It's like when I just said something in response to them, the first thing they responded back with, let's play in traffic, let's box. So it's like, who's the sensitive one? If I've been talked about for 20 years, my response has never been, let's box, let's fight. So I just want to dispel this narrative that I see continuously put out that, oh, without people even knowing me, I thought you was violent or I thought you was this. It's just a different perspective because I was raised that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words don't hurt. And I even said in the beginning what I was doing. And I did take your advice, and I think you was right. I do not curse as much on my main page. I don't do it because if that's what's going to make them not hear the message, when I'm trying to just get them to bring the shame back and see this is what our culture has fell in love with. Mm-hmm. Every time I go to a bar, it's songs that you be like, whoa. And it's Christian women, it's people that are school teachers, it's everybody. This is the poison that we listening to. Going to bars with negative energy from the music. If the devil uses the music, why are we listening to that type of music? So I brought that to the internet because I knew that with an athlete doing it, because I knew that they didn't let Kobe Bryant come out with his rap song. Sino told me about that. I knew about Allen Iverson trying to come out with a rap CD. They didn't let him come out because it's not for the image of a basketball player. but they don't care about black men as a whole, because you can see what the rap music in that culture is doing to us as a whole. If it's bad for an athlete to do, it should be bad for a rapper to do.
I think so. Here's the question I would ask both of you: is this? I think, and Kwame, you spoke about it on the show, saying that you were working at 14, 15 years old, and you working with grown men smoking cigs, cussing, all these things. I do feel like, you know, aside from the rappers that are acting, because everybody ain't like that, right? Like let's be real. I do feel like sometimes they're just talking about either lives that they've lived, neighborhoods they've grown up in, or the lives of the people that are close to them.
It used to be like that. Now they're rapping about actual murders. Right.
And so in that though, it's not the music to me. It's the actual people. Right? That, because for me, for instance, right, I'm not, if I was to rap, or whenever I'm to get a message across, I'm not going to act like the biggest, baddest man, or I'm not going to criticize somebody for something that I've done, because I'm not going to be no hypocrite, right? I'm going to talk about my life. Like if somebody's like, yeah, you know, I'll shoot you. Well, I'm going to have to be honest. Well, I'm going to have to get shot because I ain't got no gun, you know?
Now, he just said he's not going to be a hypocrite, but yet, what he said today and what he did on his show, that was very hypocritical.
I mean, like, I'm not here. And so I think that what's happening is you said something on our show, man, that really stuck with me. You were talking about school programs and after school programs. And you said, you still got to send them home. And you got to clean up the neighborhoods. You got to clean up the household. To me, it's not about the music. To me, it's about our household. It's about, I did something today, and I talked about Patrick Mahomes Sr. and Averion Hurts, right? That's the fathers of Jalen Hurts and the father of Patrick Mahomes. And I said, when we do draft, we always talking about the broken home and how they were raised by a single mother and look at the adversity he's overcome. But we're not talking about these two black quarterbacks that are the first two quarterbacks of African-American descent, the first two black quarterbacks to starting a Super Bowl against one another. What about their daddies? What about Jalen Hurts' daddy, who was his high school football coach? Right? Let's talk about, like, why isn't that the story this week? Or Patrick Mahomes' dad, who had him in major league clubhouses, learning how to lead, right? Learning how to be diverse in culture, learning how to get along and deal with everybody. And now these two dudes are the biggest leaders on the best two teams in the NFL. Let's talk about that. And if we talk about that more, or we talk about you fighting for your kids, or we talk about the fact that, you know, I have a son right now who plays Division I football, right? Who I still train, right? Who I FaceTime on the regular, who I ask every day, what are you doing? Who now we're reading books together and we have damn book reports we do. Like, let's talk about that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Let that be what our culture sees, because I'm sure everybody on here is about throwing hands. Like, I don't have a homeboy who's scared to throw.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But I do know. But
guess what? That's what we was talking about before. We was talking about trading and coding in schools. I was talking about black magic. I'm telling them about how, and I got to call out, because you have to call out bad behavior and shame it first. My first conversation with them, I said, N-words like y'all talking about N-words like me, because to me, there's a difference. When I say I'm a Geechee, we're peaceful people. We don't start nothing with nobody. We just finish it. And the antagonizing and the game plans and the things that they brought out, here's why I pay attention to it. The world, when you use this word, I'm trolling, you bring others to the table. It's not just you by yourself. This is a dangerous thing for a celebrity of his caliber to troll and put my address and act as if he got me moving from hotel to hotel when he know that that's not true. So to play games like that, you can have somebody else do something that maybe he's not willing to do. And so I'm just saying out in the open, these are the type of games that has to stop amongst the Black community. Despite everything I've said to him, Matt, Jack, none of them, I never said I was going to bring any harm to them or their family or put their home address or none of those type of things. So for him to be playing those type of games, and people in general, us as Black folks, I'm the main one calling it out. Respect me like you respect them white boys. I believe if you want to help the Black community, you tell them all, respect each other like you do them white boys. You're not chasing blonde-haired, blue-eyed guys and shooting them down in the streets every night. You're doing that to each other. So we can fix the Black community tomorrow if they just treat Black men like they treat white men.
I agree, because see, the thing is this: you're highlighting a situation that you don't even live in. It's like you don't live in the hood; you live in like $1 million houses. You live in a different community than what the people are, but you're highlighting the negative aspect of it. You want to hang with those street guys and use their slang that they use in the streets and throw up signs, and it's like you're in a privileged position. It's like maybe 1%, you know, of the chances or the odds to get to play in the major leagues or any professional sport. The odds are just like monumental. Like Ryan, I know your situation. Like that was, it's almost a miracle the way you got to play in the NFL. So it's a hard process just to get through the door.
Right.
And when you get there, that is a very privileged position. So I felt like you owe it to yourself and to your people to conduct yourself in such a way, in a manner, a standard that would make you shine to where people would say, okay, now that's somebody I can follow. Like if you look at Isaiah Thomas, that's somebody from Chicago, where I'm from, who I've always known. Isaiah Lloyd Thomas III, and I already said he was the best basketball player to ever touch a ball. And here in Chicago, they that's like taboo. Jordan. You know, that's Michael Jordan. I'm like, Isaiah is from Chicago. What are you talking about? But the thing about Isaiah that stands out the most is that he is more talented outside of the game of basketball. His knowledge of business and just life in general and the way he conducts himself as a man. That's one of the things I'm like, now that's something I can get behind because he's not glorifying any of the negativities that he grew up around. And he grew up in a rough area of Chicago on the west side. And he never glorified the violence. He never glorified the gangs. He never glorified that lifestyle. When he was coaching, all the players had to wear suit and tie. That was the standard. If you was on a team with Isaiah Thomas, you had to wear a suit and tie. You had to present yourself. And it was amazing. And David Stern saw that, contacted Isaiah, and this is when they ended up making the rule change about the wardrobes because they feeling like that's the way you're dressed, you're presenting this behavior, which it was wrong, I think, the dress code, but it had gotten so out of control where everybody was coming there basically in pajamas sometimes. They're just going to work in like some pajamas, some Crocs or whatever. They're just going to work. And it's like, well, this is still part of the job. You're selling our sport. Our product, you gotta like conduct yourself, you know, dress up like you're going to work. So our conditioning is different. What we used to look up to and our standards of the people from our day. Like my family, I was blessed, and I understand people don't have the same support system. That's why I say I never look down on those who didn't have that. You don't know what household was like for them growing up. They might have grown up with a drug addict mother or uncle that had them selling drugs. I never would look down on it. I had a support system. I had my whole family around us. Like Jesse Jackson used to say, I grew up in the slums, but the slums didn't grow in me. And that's how my family was. We grew up in a very poverty-stricken area, but you wouldn't know it because the way we didn't deal with all the nonsense that was going on in the neighborhood. We kept a foundation, and all of us, we had a community. And long as we knew our community on this block, none of that activity is going to go down. We had respectable people on there. Everybody knew each other, and we looked out for each other. We know the Johnson's house. The Johnson's over here. The Johnsons go on vacation. We watching their house. Everything's going, like the whole community took care of each other. Kid was sick. Hey, could you go pick up my kid from school? You know, he's not feeling well. It's, okay, I'll go get him. I'm at home. He'll be at my house and you'll get up work. That's how the neighborhood looked out for each other. So everybody had each other's back. Now, no one, they talk about community. You got people that lives on the same block. They don't even know the neighbors 2 houses down. They don't know anybody. Yeah. Then they worry about the president of the United States of America. But I'm like, you have your community. Your sidewalks is cracked. They're closing schools in your community. The education, they're overcrowding schools, and they're cutting budget funds. You're not worried about what's happening right outside your door. Mm-hmm. And that's the main problem. We got to get back to the community, because now you're losing. You went through your life already. It's the next generation. Your kids.
How are we gonna get back to community when they showing you celebrities so much? That's the biggest trick in the book. That's how we spend so much money. You got poor people trying to be like Kim Kardashian and the biggest celebrity. All they do is watch TV or watch their phone. Look at the spending habits in the hood. It don't show that people are broke. It just showed that they just spend up all their money trying to look like they got money. I'm from the hood. I know how it really works. They put rims, all that money you spend on Forgianos, all the things that we do in the hood, Jordans. It's the TV. It's the culture. It's the how we look at somebody who go to class opposed to skipping class. It's our culture. It needs to be erased. And that's why I said it to those guys, like, how could you sit up here and pump your fist talking about Black Lives Matter? When I fly from state to state, I never was looking over my shoulder thinking somebody white was going to rob me. If you look at the percentages of what would happen to black men to black men, my biggest threat is another black man in a certain age range. And that shouldn't happen. This 2023.
Kwame, but
get that out of it.
But you also have to realize that people do crimes based on proximity.
It's different now. It's different now, bro. They killing for no reason now.
No, I 100% believe that they're killing for no reason, and that it is continually getting worse because, and you mentioned Christians, like we are getting further and further away from the church, right? The religion and spirituality, if you take it back to our grandparents, to our great-grandparents, it was all they had. That's where old Negro spirituals came from, because they didn't have nothing else, right? When you think about the fact that old preachers used to preach fire and brimstone and eternal heavens because they felt like what we were enduring on earth, the only gift we could ever get was to spend eternity with Christ. So they had to preach that. That's no longer what it is. People don't care no more about death or life. You know what I'm saying? Like these young boys pull triggers like you could come back from that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like and they aren't, right? Think about like Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin is dead because he was walking in a neighborhood that a man didn't believe he was supposed to be walking into.
Thanks.
So you're not gonna be able to get into their neighborhood to rob them. You feel me? You're gonna have to rob the dude next to you. You got to kill the dude next to you, or the dude next to you, that's the person that you're gonna be fighting with to get whatever you got. And if you gotta take from him, you gotta take from him. And the thing I hate is when one of us does have, and I'm guilty of this too, Kwame. Like I can't say that I'm not. They had another guy who did TV, and I felt like every time he talked about a topic, or it was something that came from me standing for Black people, he always had to like oppose, like I was faking, right? That like I was crying that Black people are mistreated, or that I was crying that police brutality is a real thing, or I was crying that the communities need help. Ryan Clark has a victim mentality, this and this. And I was straight up with him on Twitter, like, hey, bro, send me your address. Like, I'm not about TV and I'm not about, tweeting. Let's have a man-to-man conversation. And it wasn't to me about fighting. It was to me about, we are doing this publicly. We don't have to do this publicly. Let's get on the phone. let's have a face-to-face conversation. And very much like you, though, I was like, and if it goes somewhere from that, I'm fine with that.
Right.
But even that for me, like I had to pull back from that because it's still two successful Black men having this issue. And so whether it's you and Gil, you, Stack, Matt, whatever, it's like when we gonna be adults? You know what I'm saying? Like I get 20 years, bro, of people talking about you, and then all of a sudden when you say something, it's now a big deal. I don't understand that.
Me either. I didn't get violent. Why can't they not get violent? You know, and my thing is with the conversation that you just said that we have to rob the people that we're around, or you can build with the people that you're around.
No, I
was on Durham,
agree with
Carolina, and instead of robbing each other, one person grew a crop, like the other person said on my panel. We grew corn, another person grew something else, and we traded. Yep. You don't have to hurt somebody next to you. We have Hispanic people coming over to the United States right now. They're work together with a skill. They're coming with a skill that they're pulling each other up one by one, because instead of killing each other, because nobody can have a life like that, they're building with each other. They go from owning one house on the block to owning 2 to 3 to 4. It just doesn't look pretty doing it. And to me, our culture, we got to look pretty doing everything. Right. Your stomach got to rumble. You're not going to have on Jordans if you're working with the person next to you. You got to be able to take less. And I do think you're right in the sense that we are going to hurt people that we are around, but we got to stop the silly nonsense from the internet. You can say one wrong thing to somebody on the internet, and instead of it be, okay, well, I just don't agree with you. It got to be, we got to pull up. You're going to leave your wife, your family, your friends to pull up on somebody about what they said over the internet. I've never done that. I never will do that because it don't make any sense. We should all be able to agree to disagree. And so my platform is, no matter how aggressive we got on here, I don't participate in the people telling each other we're going to pull up on each other unless it's going to be a man-to-man situation where everybody going home, like you say, because sometimes you can say certain things that you can't come back from. But our culture now is a bunch of men being protected by other men so that they can get more disrespectful to one or two men. We are literally packing out each other in groups. Like I'm outside every day. And it's just, to me, it's getting real spooky about how we are looking for another Black person to say something to us for we to turn up to the max. If the skin color is white, there's never a physical aggression. We have to figure out what's wrong with our psychology that we get so aggressive towards each other, but not like that towards white people.
No, I think
that's more white supremacy than anything.
That's an amazing point. And I think the other thing that definitely needs to be said is this. And if I misspeak for you, let me know. Mm-hmm. You're not actually saying you have to be aggressive towards whites. Mm-hmm. You're asking if you can have that sort of restraint when you feel disrespected by white people. Mm-hmm. Where is that restraint when it comes to your own? Yeah. Where is that understanding or that grace when it comes to your people? Yeah. And honestly, Kwame, I think that's part of the trick. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I think that's part of the conditioning of
that is true.
Like of growing up where we grew up, around the people we grew up. You don't really have those interactions with people that don't look like you, right? And then the first time you do, there's such a fear striking you by society or by law or by authority that you're like, oh wait, like I can't do this. But because society ain't protecting us in general, right? They're not protecting me. They're not protecting Kwame. They're not protecting Carcino. I'm not tripping on what I do to you. Because I've been conditioned that they're not going to come down as hard on me for what I do to Kwame as they are going to come down to me to what I do to Peter McConnell. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Scary. Yeah. You know, and that's why we have to, like, we got to have these conversations though, bro. Like and I'm glad you do it here. That's why I have the pivot, bro. Like I want people to like sit down and be able to talk like they got some sense.
Facts.
Right. And the one thing I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to allow in a space where I'm in, is for people to get disrespectful in that way. Because now, once you are part of that, you are part of that. My homeboy, you know how it is, man. When you grow up with your boys, like, you know, some people call it capping, some people call it ribbon, some people call it joning, whatever it is. Like, your shoes busted, they talking about you. Your clothes, whatever. And my homeboy used to have a saying. He's like, if you grin, you win. Basically saying, if I'm making fun of Sino and Kwame, or Sino making fun of me and Kwame laugh, I'm shooting at Kwame now. Because it ain't your business. You know, and that's the thing I feel. If I let somebody come on my platform and get disrespectful to me, I'm just as much at fault as you are, or as that person is. Because
exactly. You let Gilbert Arenas go on that platform and basically disrespect Kwame Brown and tell a whole bunch of lies. And you're just as guilty letting that man come on the program and do what he just did. Like it up.
I've given you this space to do that. So now I'm giving people an opportunity to continue doing something I'm trying to fight against. You know what I mean? And I think that's where, like, we have to get to a point where we stop praising the things like you mentioned. That's what the society wants the black man to look like. We got to stop praising that. We got to call that out. And I think this is where you're starting to move now.
And you got anything to add to that, Sino?
Yeah, pretty much, because what the conditioning that you're seeing now, what he was saying, because it was all spot on. Because it's like, where do we go now? What is the next step? What is the next process into moving over? Because what we're seeing is the environment in the society that's around us, the foundation is broken. And we see that, and it's highlighted because you have mostly, this is why they give professional athletes sponsorships, because they're going to be highlighted. Most of them, the people see, and they're reflective of it. Like in our neighborhoods, that's what we knew. Like, I had all the jewelry, and I had on diamond. I had on a big 40-inch. I had a big Wu-Tang medallion. And it was a badge of honor that I.
What you know about Wu-Tang from Chicago?
Oh man, come on.
Don't get Cito started.
Yeah, so I was basically that was my crew. So I was like, Wu-Tang out, man, and I could walk around my neighborhood and nobody would rob me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna get robbed. I've got all these jewelry on. And I'm just antagonizing the people that couldn't afford this stuff. And I'm like, in any given time, any one of these people could have hurt me at any time. And it was like, once I got older, you know, you grow out of that nonsense. Like, I don't even wear jewelry really anymore. I wear a watch. I might wear some beads somebody made me. But you grow out of that mentality. But the thing about me is, like I said, everything is different. I was able to, because my family was military, we moved to different areas. I get to see different races and different cultures and things I didn't never know and never would have known had I never met them. Like, I've never met an Indian person before, and actually like befriend with them enough to be in their house for dinner. And then you learn about their customs and you learn about different, you know, I'm like, wow, different like people and how they act towards each other, and that they had a financial structure system within the family. And this is how they acquired, you know, the wealth that they did. I didn't have known that if I didn't have a friend and was incorporated with them, because most of us in the inner ghetto, the most interaction we have with white people is they're either our teachers, the principal, the police officer. We saw them in a position of authority. We never saw them like in our like walking around in the neighborhood. So we never really had that bond. And most people, once you meet people, all those barriers go down because you can able to interact with each other. So this is why if you look at the situations of structure in all the communities, like the Indian families, what they would do is they would go to business college for 2 years short. They would work in that industry, graduate, have their certificate, and they have the money that they got from coming over, and they will open up a restaurant or a business, and then they will get a relative to come over from overseas, let them live with them room-free, rent-free, and they work at their business. And while they're working at the business, they have to go to the business college for 2 years, get their degree. Once they graduate, they'll get a bank loan, save up, they're saving all their money. They go apply for the bank loan, they get it, they open up their branch of the same business. Like they had a Dunkin' Donuts business. So they had a chain, they had about a chain of Dunkin' Donuts all in the family. And he did the same thing with the other cousin. He said, now that I've done that for you, now it's your turn to do for the next one. His job is done doing that for the family members. He said, okay, now you're set up, you're in position, you own your Dunkin' Donuts. You shadowed me and you did this. So in less than 5 years, they do that. They do the same thing with gas stations, that people don't know that you can actually acquire a gas station. And they know how to do it, but we don't save and we don't sacrifice. Like he worked 2 jobs and his wife worked 2 jobs, and they would take all the money from the second job and save it because they knew what the down payment was to get the loan for the actual filling station that they wanted to get. So they had a plan because they saw the goal, the end line. They say you got to see the goal first, your end game, then work backwards in the steps and say, okay, this step will get me here, there, here, here. Now I'm here, and now I know my steps in which I need to get to acquire here because I know my end game. So they sacrifice things. Like they're gonna miss some birthday parties, they're gonna miss some anniversary dinners. They can miss that, but the end game is we're gonna own this. We're gonna have something to leave back to our children. We're gonna have something to where they can learn from and then go out and acquire their own. And we don't have those things because our structure system has been broken. We were business oriented and ownership oriented in the 60s and 70s, way more than we are today. That is the weirdest thing now that I've ever can imagine, that in this age, we're working backwards from ownership. When we were more ownership, we owned our houses, owned land, we knew how to farm. We have lost that connection to actual life, like trading, things of survival. My grandparent told me, I was like, my grandfather could do everything. He's from Georgetown, Georgia, Eufaula, Alabama, that area. And I said, man, how did you know how to do everything? He could do electric. He said, well, we had to survive. He said, back in our day, you couldn't just go to an auto shop. You couldn't trust it back then. The racism was high. You couldn't go to certain restaurants. That's why the tradition of cooking food on the road, that my grandma would just cook all this food. We'd pack it up in all these containers and take it on the road. So we never stopped to go to restaurants to eat. Let
me ask you, do you think we can ever get back to that? Because I think we're going to have to be forced back to that. Because my thing is the way we treat each other. And like I said, I appreciate you for coming on, Brother Ryan, because now we can kind of bridge that gap. I've seen Stephen Jackson in the airport, and I want them all to know, each and every last one of them, if I saw Stephen Jackson, it would not be any problem. And he knows if I saw Gilbert, it wouldn't be any problem because he knows that. He wouldn't do nothing to me, and I wouldn't do nothing to him. And Matt Barnes either. The only way I'm going to do something to anyone is they try to do something to me. So I wish that we had more people that would behave in that manner instead of going out to seek problems with people. Life is too short for all the drama. And so I definitely appreciate you telling me from an outside standpoint, looking in, how it looks, because perception is reality. And if it looks that way, then
perception is reality. And this perception is just horrible to see.
And you challenge that cancel. What is cancel? So I had to go through all of this to realize, what am I going to push out?
You know who said something very similar on our show?
Kwame Brown.
He said something very similar. Why is he so convinced you're the reason he didn't play?
Because that's what he told himself. To be honest, it was so funny. I was going to do a live on today, going back in time. I got the game footage. Kwame was, I think he was where I was when I got into the gun situation mentally, right? When I first got to Washington, he was scarred. And it makes sense. I mean, sure, you had Michael Jordan, right? You had Michael Jordan, the person you looked up to. You had Jerry Stackhouse. You had a whole bunch of, like, I knew what I went through as a rookie 2 years, right? But I enticed half that shit, right? You know, I had Chris Mills and Denny Fortson and all of them. So I was, you know, I wasn't playing. So I needed ass whoopers to feel like I'm part of the team, goddammit. Right? I'm 15, you know, you need to physically beat me up so I can feel like I'm a part of this. Right, because this is crazy. Come to practice every day, nobody know who you are. So when I got there, and I'm hearing the stories, you know, just watching his mannerisms, and right, he was still scarred, trying to figure out who he was. So I'd never said nothing to him. Like, we never had no problems. What happened was he started off our second season there. He started off injured, right? So we made the trade for Antoine. We were putting Antoine at the 4, putting Kwame at the 5. He was a better 5-man, right? Kwame was a 4-5. He could have been an Anthony Davis type, but he was that guy that can play, depending on how much weight he weighed at the time, he can be a 3-4-5, right? Faster than every 5, faster than every 4. Small hands, but it didn't really matter. It just, he didn't train for how fast he was, right? That was his biggest mistake, right? You're fast as hell, but you're training like traditional. You're training with Patrick Ewing and all of that. And, you know, the moves you're doing is not what happens in a game, right? You're taking off and I'm throwing a ball and you're not, you ain't been trained to run full speed, catch it and do all that. So you're happening in real time. So I didn't really like go at him. So he started off the year not with the team, right? By the time he came back, we was all in full motion, right? He's fighting for bench minutes, right? It's supposed to be Kobe and Shaq, right? And he's fighting to get into the demotion of the team, right? So he never won his starting position back. So he's getting booed at the end of the season, right? You know, they've seen winning and they're trying to put him back in, miss a layup, they booing him. So we wasn't playing him at home like that. He got all the time on the road. He was playing like 37 minutes on the road, about 15 at home, right? He missed a couple layups, right? Mentally, he wasn't where he was supposed to be. Like, he wasn't confident in his game. He missed so much time trying to get in shape while we're trying to win. It just got away from him.
Lies, all lies. This man's agent, Dan Fegan, who ended up losing all 7 of his clients during the legal actions that was taken against him, because look at this. That's Gilbert's agent, Dan Fegan. He lost 7 NBA player clients and at the risk of losing his entire business as a result of the legal action his former employers took against him. Oh, you go? You going down early? Oh. So Dan Fegan ended up dying in a car accident with his wife. Well, I don't know if she died. Huh? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Dan Fegan died. So he died before they had a chance to even get to that point. But as you can see, he lost 7 NBA players and clients due to his interference. And by him, Gilbert, being Gilbert's agent, and he wanted Kwame Brown to leave his agent, which was Aaron Tellum, to sign with him, and he could get him X Y amount of dollars. Kwame was going to get that anyway, based on Tyson Chandler's contract. Tyson Chandler got an extension from the Chicago Bulls in 2005 and 10 for $64 million. So 10 million was guaranteed. 64 is guaranteed. His salary was 10 million a year. He had a 6-year deal for 64 million that he signed in 2005 to 2010. So this is what we're talking about. Now, this is what we're talking about when people said Joey Howard, that's just him doing his spin move. That's what a manipulator does. Now, as you can see, Dan Fagan wanted to punish Kwame for not, basically signing with him in torturous interference. So what he decided to do was something very similar to other players, not just with Kwame Brown. Kwame told his agent, and then his agent, Arntella, was going to file a tampering suit against Dan Fagan. 7 other players and clients had left him because of these practices he was doing, basically extorting them into contracts, right? He wasn't a good person. They lost 7 NBA players and clients, and at the risk of losing their entire business as a result to that legal action. All right, let's go deeper. Dan Fagan, Gilbert Arenas attorney, lost 7 NBA player clients and is at the risk of losing his entire business when an independent sports agency took against him. In a court declaration last week in LA, they're asking for a preliminary injunction preventing Fagan from competing with the agency until his non-complete agreement expires in February. They accused Fagan of breach of contract with 2 arbitrations in the court case. He said he did nothing wrong. They had a restraining order against Dan Fagan that began on March 1st to April 7th. They had 87-page court document saying his business has gotten damaged because of this restraining order, and he lost several clients whom he did not name. The loss of these 7 players would cost him a lot of money, and until this injunction is lifted, he's at a risk of losing all his players, his competition, injunctions, everything. And they trying to convince his clients not to leave him, but it's impossible, right? Meanwhile, this is levied against him by Hank Rather and for inappropriately funding AAU basketball programs in such a way to funnel money to amateur athletes. He refused to treat female employees fairly in terms of compensation and workplace rules, which resulted in at least 1 gender discrimination claim. In other allegations, ISC accused Fagan of launching a smear campaign. Fagan is simply trying to smear his way out of reality, which created through false and malicious allegations. This is what desperate people do when they have no defense on the merits. Simply put, ISC intends to prove that Mr. Fagan damaged ISC with his misconduct, not only by losing major clients through very high-profile terminations, but also by actively working against ISC and abusing and threatening agents under his supervision. His reputation and actions speaks for themselves. Yep. Fagan said he did not threaten any agents. and didn't allow them to leave. Now, Fagan brakes failed him in a car accident, and I don't believe that car accident was an accident. I believe somebody took Fagan out. So we spoke about this later, but anyway, we're going to let this lie right here, and we'll come in there and deal with this at another date. But everything Kwame said has been 100%, and everything Gilbert says is a manipulative lie. I'm out.